Your sex life is a system, not a mechanical system, a living system, like an ecosystem, like a body, like an organism. It works on certain energy laws for that system to remain sustainable and to thrive. Not some really far-out woo-woo laws, but just really common sense energy laws that we can all understand. The problem is that in our culture we are completely unaware of how those energy dynamics work in a sex life, and we treat our sex lives in a very unsustainable way that is completely flushing out and depleting energy in that living system, and that is why a lot of sex lives eventually collapse. So I'm going to explain to you 3 really powerful energy laws for sex in your relationship, and that will really help you to immediately fortify sex life in your relationship and make it a lot stronger to thrive and grow for time to come. And later in the video I will also give you a free download to a complete full system how to make your sex life work in a relationship in a thriving, sustainable way with amazing quality of sexual energy. So stay on for that, that's coming up as well. So the first law of sexual energy in relationships, specifically for sex in relationships, is that you are not driven by sexual energy into sex. You go into sex to create sexual energy. And this is such an important distinction because in the beginning of the relationship, in that honeymoon phase when you've just met and you're novel to each other, you are doing exactly the opposite. You are just driven by that sexual energy. You're just driven by that instinct, that desire. There's a massive amount of drugs in your body. So that sexual energy fills up all the time and you're just trying to empty it and shed it. And you're driven by it. You get used to being driven by it. This is how sex works for you. You're just thrown into sex by your sexual energy. So you have sex in all those really intense ways because you have energy for it. And then you expect this to carry on in your relationship, and then it stops working because the energy calms down. So later in the relationship, you have sex by choice, not because you're driven by instinct and by energy. You choose to have sex because it is a good thing to do, because it's really important to you, because you get some really important nutrition from it for yourself and for your relationship. So you have to understand this is a complete 180. You can't be just sitting there waiting for that energy to throw you into sex. You are now creating sexual energy. You're creating that nutrition. You're creating the stuff that's going to feed you. So that means a completely different technique. You need to learn how to have sex without, a massive turn on, maybe without a lot of energy. You need to learn how to create that sexual energy, nurture it, let it build up, let it unfold from scratch most times that you have sex. And you need to make sure that the quality of that sexual energy is really nourishing for you. It really feeds you. Otherwise, it feels kind of vacuous and you're not motivated to have sex. So there's actually a lot to relearn later in your relationship on how to have sex, because all the technique has to change from this high intensity state and just doing whatever to really creating sexual energy from a much lower energy state, normally speaking. The second law of sexual energy in relationships is that you don't just spend energy, you regenerate it as well. This is a really common sense thing to understand. It's basically a sustainable cycle. Normally we have no concept of this. We are just spending all the time. Again, it's because we are used to doing that in the very beginning when there were buckets of it and you just couldn't do enough to get rid of it. So we get used to this mindset that the purpose is to release sexual tension, and the whole culture is telling you it's all about release, it's all about releasing and having an orgasm. So there's this idea to always empty yourself. And that is not a sustainable way of running a sex life. You must understand this. It's only sustainable in the beginning when you have buckets of it, you have a surplus of it. So later you need to have a certain cycle. You have some sex to spend energy when you feel really in high energy, high desire, and you need to have sex for regeneration, sex that builds up sexual energy specifically. Having sex in those states with that nourishing, restorative energy, you then build up into a higher state when you can spend again. So it's a cycle. By the way, if you're interested in learning more, I teach you the complete practice of holistic sex in my online courses, which you can see on my website. And then the third really important law to implement is that you don't force energy. You adapt to the energy that you have. So it's like a little bit of Qigong, Tai Chi approach for you here, flow like the water, don't just, try to power through it. And it's a little bit related to the previous law when I was talking about regenerating from low energy to high energy to to build up your sexual energy again. So you can have sex in those low energy states. They're going to be right for it. But taking this a little bit further, you just need to adapt to wherever your energy is today, to not have a particular idea how sex needs to be because you've been given this picture by our culture that it has to be really hot and passionate and intense, and that means that's good sex. And if you're not having that kind of sex, then it's not good sex. There are many different kinds of good sex, and they all have different qualities of energy for you. They all feed you in different ways. So you don't actually need to choose. You can just adapt to where you are today, to feel kind of where you are, where your mood is, where your energy is, what your needs are today. Do you need something kind of calm and restorative? Do you feel really energetic? Do you want to do something really sexy? And then just do what feels right for you today. And then you naturally align with different kind of states of energy in yourself. You always have sex. It's always good sex. It's just good in different ways. So when the day is right for you to spend your energy, then you will feel that and you just go with it. When the day is not right for you, then you will feel that and you will naturally give yourself the kind of sex that is more regenerative, more restorative. So never force any kind of idea how sex needs to be, because on the wrong day, that's going to drain from you. It's going to make sex kind of feel more intimidating, more difficult. And if that is consistent in your relationship, that can actually end your sex life. So always adapting and always having some kind of sex that nourishes you. So don't just wait for sexual energy to drive you, create sexual energy. You are making that nutrition now. Don't just spend energy, don't just do high energy stuff and flushing out your sexual energy with orgasms all the time. Make sure you also regenerate and build up your sexual energy as part of that cycle. And third, adapt to your energy states on any given day and just go with what feels right for that energy state today, and give yourself always some kind of good sex, but different kinds of good sex on different days.